Part 3. Around 6:45, Gina came to fetch me, and I followed her along the long corridor towards the main stage area. "Have you met the members of your band?" "Yet," he asked. "Band," I gasped. "Heath said we'd use backing tracks. How are there musicians who have learned how to play all of my songs already?" "Don't ask me," Gina shrugged, tapping the lanyard which bounced against her blouse. "I'm just a stagehand." The support band suddenly burst through a set of double doors ahead of us. I wanted to greet them, so I was a little disheartened when Gina shepherded me to one side. "I wouldn't say anything to them if I were you," she cautioned. "What?" I asked. Why, she frowned, nodding at one of the approaching band members. "Glenn was unhappy that the crowd drowned out their performance by chanting your name endlessly. Towards the end of the set, he was vocal about that," and Gina didn't need to finish her sentence. I eyed the members of the synth pop outfit as they walked past, quickly spotting Glenn's drenched shirt and shattered sunglasses. He bore a deep gash above his right eye, either from a stray shard of his damaged shades or a projectile launched by an audience member. Whatever the case, he looked disgruntled, and I was glad that he didn't spot me hiding to one side with Gina. I had no doubt that he'd blame me for the crowd's reaction. "Sorry about that," she sighed. "The vibe's been off today." I nodded, understanding all too well. "Are you ready to head up?" Gina asked. "You've got 5 minutes?" I shrugged. "With a crowd like that? Not really." She smiled warmly, as if seeing me for the first time. "You really are a fish out of water, aren't you? You'll be fine, Fen. They don't bite." And I truly believed that as I walked onto the stage 2 minutes later. Truly believed that I'd simply experienced a storm of success which would upturn anyone's mind. I took my guitar from Gina and stepped into the glow of the disorienting overhead lights. Euphoria gripped me as I hooped the Fender's nylon strap over my shoulder and prepared to adjust, not only the strap, but my mind. I braced for the fame that I'd spent half of my life craving. But as nearly 2,000 illuminated faces locked onto me, there erupted a cry which tore through my earplugs. It was not a cry of excitement, not a cry of pain. The audience's combined scream rose and fell in some atonal melody from another realm. Yet, the concertgoers' screeches, synchronized perfectly, conveyed some feelings that they all shared. It was, once again, an emotion that did not truly exist, not in a human sense. It was an emotion that petrified me, something deeper and darker than fury or malice. It was an unknown desire, but what I did know was that I no longer wanted to be there. No longer wanted to be followed by the unblinking eyes of my many fans. I paced from side to side, desperate to escape their tracking gaze, but it was useless. No stage would have been big enough. This isn't even many fans. This is a pond, and there's an ocean waiting for you beyond those doors. You're facing only 1,500 people, and there are 3 million hungry sets of eyes searching for you, maybe 4, 5, or 6 million by the time you leave this place. The 2-hour set was a blur, a well-performed blur as far as I remember, but I'm sure the crowd would have applauded even if I'd strummed the wrong strings, sung the wrong notes, or yelled that they were freaks who needed to bog off. And they applauded so enthusiastically, in fact, that some of them seemed to be in pain. I glanced at one woman who was pressed against the barrier below the stage, and her body seemed to be twitching in agony as she clapped her palms with excruciating force. I felt bittersweet relief when a smiling stagehand who surveyed me as greedily as the crowd nodded from beside the stage to indicate that it was time to wrap up. "This is my last song, Eagle," I muttered, anxious that I might be slaughtered for daring to finish the set. "We love you, Fen!" A man screamed, bawling as he did. "Love." I mumbled some nervous words of thanks after completing the encore, but not a soul responded. They were hypnotized, and I watched in fright as every single member of the crowd continued dancing long after the music stopped. 1,500 people performed the choreography to Eagle with unsettling synchronicity, reminding me of the eerily uniform cry they had emitted when I first came onto the stage. There was nothing playing over the speakers, and not a voice sounded from the crowd. The only sound in the room was the clicking and clacking of 1,500 pairs of squeaking soles against sticky tiles. My silent fans directed all focus towards the dance. "How was that?" Gina obliviously asking as I stumbled down the stairs. "It was—" "What are they doing?" I asked weakly. The woman peered around the corner to take a look at the silently shuffling crowd. The audience was not shuffling home, however. They were shuffling in harmonious circles, as if they'd spent hours learning not only the choreography, but learning how to perform it together. They were one awful glob of smiles that meant harm. These fans had ill wishes, whether they were aware of that or not. "TikTok? Brain rot," the stagehand suggested, shrugging. "Your chauffeur's waiting for you in the dressing room, by the way." "Ian, is that right?" He's a character. I don't want to go with him." I found myself pleading. "I don't want to be near anyone right now." Gina frowned. "Shall I get you a glass of water? A chair, maybe so you—" "I want to get out of here," I interrupted, starting to hyperventilate. That's all I want. I want to get out of here without bumping into anyone else. And that includes my batshit crazy chauffeur. Will you help me? You're the only person in here who isn't fucking nuts. I didn't know whether the stagehand had fully understood. Didn't know whether she'd seen what I'd seen. The insidious intent behind each smile, not only in the crowd, but backstage. On the faces of her coworkers, on the face of my driver who lurked in my dressing room, waiting with a mouth that I was sure no longer hung partly open but fully wide, waiting to devour me, waiting to do something worse. Something beyond my comprehension. I'm about to head home, the woman said uncertainly. Do you want a lift? Where do you live? My heart pounded as I pulled Gina to one side, hoping to dodge the stares of the other stagehands. Their faces followed me as they passed by. They offered slobbering grins and tongues that poked loose West Didsbury, I whispered, not wanting another soul to hear. Gina sighed. That's a little out of my way, but okay, thank you, I gushed. The stagehand led me away as hurriedly and discreetly as possible. We swerved past outstretching hands from murmuring staff members. Each hungering fan was stuck on one word or another, as if glitching, "Fen more me." I tried not to decipher the meanings of these deranged utterances. I kept my eyes fixed firmly forwards as Gina led me through the fire exit, and I inhaled a satisfying lungful of air as we escaped onto the walkway by Rochdale Canal. Well, we made it. She exhaled. I parked by the train station. That's the only problem. I pulled my hood up, tightened the cord, and nodded. Let's just move quickly. Hopefully nobody spots me. We gave Whitworth Street West a wide berth and tiptoed tentatively through the bustling city center. Even after putting the Ritz behind us, however, Manchester's streets seemed to be filled with chants of my name. I wanted to believe that these were the chants of concert-goers, but something told me that those 1,500 people were still inside the venue, still caught in a hypnotic, soundless dance. Nevertheless, my lackluster disguise seemed to be sufficient as we made it to Gina's compact Kia without detection. She let out another heavy sigh once we were safely inside the car. That was intense. Do you want to ring your manager? I whispered, trembling. You really need security or something? Gina insisted as she pulled out of the car park. You're blowing up, and I've never seen an artist with your profile be left so vulnerable, so exposed to the crowd. Have you ever seen a crowd like that before? I asked. I'm not pretending to be on the same level as international superstars, but I've personally never seen anything like that. Am I going crazy? Am I just seeing things? The woman didn't respond. She turned up the volume of the radio, having clearly heard something that I missed. I tuned into what the presenter for BBC Radio Manchester was saying. Been a big week for the fella, the female presenter said. It seems like everybody's got fen fever, phenomania, whatever you want to call it. And look, I love the excitement. I've not seen this in the music industry for a long time, but this is just scary. It isn't right to harass a person, famous or not, to break into a home. It's madness. I'm just glad that he was performing tonight. If he'd been at home, this could have been 1,000 times worse. This could have. What the fuck did she just say? I blurted out, getting hurt. The presenter continued, and some reports have claimed that several police officers joined the disruptors. So far, nobody from Greater Manchester Police has been willing to comment. Gina, I started shivering. Please don't tell me. She means what I think she means? The stagehand's face lost its color. I'm so sorry, Fen. This is awful. I'm just glad you're safe. Why are they in my home? I cried, refusing to accept the reason. Where should I take you? Gina asked. I don't fucking know, I screamed before taking a deep breath. I'm sorry, I'm not mad at you. I just don't understand what's happening. That was a lie. Of course, I knew full well what was happening. Why was it happening? I'd known it when I penned my name to Heath's contract. I knew that there was something wrong with my manager. Just as I'd known that, no matter how much I listened to Paul's voice of reason, I was always going to sign that document. And when I thought of the manic messages I'd been receiving from Paul himself, along with other friends and family members, I realized that I had no good answer for Gina's question. I didn't know where to go, didn't know where it was safe. I prayed that there were others like the stagehand and the radio presenter. There had to be. People outside the bubble of insanity. People who recognized that I was only a man, not some higher being. People who recognized, most terrifyingly, that my fans were no longer people, and the number of infected followers was only growing, as was my dread of what Fenmania truly entailed. I didn't want to know what these people really wanted from me. I don't have anybody, I admitted, as we slowly trundled along. Manchester's congested streets. I don't think I'll be going home tonight. You need to call the police. Gina gulped. Did you hear what the radio presenter just said? I asked. The police are fucking crazy too. I saw it outside the Ritz earlier, you know? The people who should have been calming the crowd were part of the crowd. You saw it backstage. Please answer my question, Gina. You see famous musicians in the Ritz every week. Have you ever seen a crowd like that before? She hesitated for a moment, contesting the truth. But the woman finally conceded, finally shook her head in defeat. No, The stagehand said those people were off the fucking wall. Ask me, this whole thing, the radio presenter continued, is embarrassing. I loved NSYNC when I was a girl. I wanted to marry each and every one of them. Would I have stood outside their homes in the hope of seeing them? Sure, it wouldn't have been right, but I would have done it. Would I have broken into their homes and stolen their possessions? Absolutely not. Fen is a person, nothing more. If you've taken part in tonight's awfulness, you need to hello. There followed a pause, and my eyes were drawn to the radio, as if I might be able to stare through the plastic of the dashboard into British Broadcasting Corporation Manchester's studio. Might be able to see what was happening in the presenter's broadcasting room. I saw nothing, but I sensed it, heard it in the static traveling over the airwaves. There was somebody else in the broadcasting room, somebody watching the presenter, a person who had filled her body with some contagion that she passed on to me. A communicable dread transmitted through that simple hello, she repeated, voice cracking. Sorry, everyone. There's somebody in the one moment, Jonathan. I think there might be. Wait. Jonathan, is that you? Fen is us? A voice hissed in response. US, US. There followed a scream so unnatural that it took me a moment to realize it had stemmed from the presenter herself. And the British Broadcasting Corporation did not cut to some sturdy, reassuring message about technical difficulties. They did not promise to handle the situation and resume normal broadcasting. All that sounded, following the presenter's piercing shriek, was the crackling drone of dead air. I live in Russholm, Gina whimpered, pretending not to have heard. I'll take you there. We traveled the rest of the way in silence. Both of us eyed the passing cars and pedestrians fearfully, wondering whether a demented fan might lunge at any moment. Might topple Gina's titchy Kia without much resistance at all, then tear me out. Do with me whatever worshippers do when they have a god in their clutches. Fen is us. I finally understood the emotion I had seen on their faces. It was love and hate combined. It was such an impossible marriage of humanity's fiercest emotions that it had rendered my followers inhuman. I realized that even they might not know what to do with me once they had me. Ian had certainly seemed unsure as to what he wanted when his face was only inches from mine. I didn't want to give any of my haunting followers the chance to make a decision. When we arrived in Gina's quiet cul-de-sac, I was relieved to find her street empty. I thought back to that very same morning. I'd been bubbling with excitement at the prospect of being swarmed by bright-eyed fans. But when I'd been faced with the reality of that, I had wanted nothing more than to fade back into obsolescence. After she led us into her home, my savior silently wandered up to bed. I slumped onto the sofa, still not quite accepting what had happened. Gina was a beautiful woman, roughly my age, and I would have been ecstatic at the prospect of winding up in her home under any other circumstances. But I was thinking of the unnatural things I'd witnessed at the Ritz, thinking of what I'd heard on the radio. I didn't want to access the internet, didn't want to learn the truth, but trying to sleep would have been pointless, so I searched for answers. And it didn't take long to find them. I wasn't shocked by the 20 million YouTube subscribers, not even the billion views on Eagle, my biggest single. What shocked me was the plain truth that very few people cared about the radio presenter. Gina and I hadn't been hearing things, however. The Manchester Evening News had already reported on the situation. Police responded to concerned calls from the handful of sane listeners, but they found only the presenter's wedding ring. It swam in a shallow puddle of blood on her abandoned chair. Additionally, the injured musician from the support band had gone missing shortly after the show. His bandmates were unaware as to his whereabouts, but foul play was suspected. Some reports did comment on the injury he sustained during his set. In spite of the nastiness involving my fan base, however, the media frenzy surrounding my name from both official sources and the public remained positive, or, at the very least, not negative. Everything came back to that false emotion, that unholy mixture of love and hate. Fen. Fen, I am Fen. The land speaks to me, I will burn all others. Burn the world until all is Fen. I spent the night reading messages such as those, tortured myself well into the early hours of the morning, and it took hours for an idea to finally strike me. I searched for a pen and paper, then started scribbling a blunt message for Heath. Get me out of this contract. I included my new temporary address in Russholm, praying that no crazy fan would find the letter, and I posted it before the sun rose. You should lie low, Gina said, over breakfast. I don't know whether you've seen things online, but I've seen, I sharply interrupted, not wanting any reminders. Thank you, Gina. You didn't have to help me. You still don't. I don't want you to put yourself in danger. She waved a hand. I'm not going to send you out there. People are going missing, Fen. Not just the presenter and the musician. There have been all sorts of strange stories this morning that only worsened over the following days. I remained inside on Wednesday and Thursday, tried to ignore news stories of disappearances, altercations between my fans and those who dissented. It was starting to feel far bigger than me, far bigger than even the tens of millions following me. Civilization was disintegrating. On Friday, the day of the dreaded Wembley performance, Heath's response finally came.